chair now recognizes the gentleman from California, Mr. Ruiz, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My home state of California has made serious efforts to move away from an addiction or dependence on fossil fuels as we look towards the future. The Inflation Reduction Act and the CHIPS and Science Act have made much-needed investments in domestic battery manufacturing and lithium recovery. This funding is essential to advancing renewable energy here at home. A smooth transition is needed to remove our grids from the dirty, climate-changing energy of the past and catapult us into the future of a new, reliable, and clean energy grid. This includes powering our homes and businesses with solar, wind, and battery storage, and all of the above. However, we cannot move forward at the expense of vulnerable or frontline communities. We cannot invest in production without enforcement of the Clean Air Act standard for healthy air quality. I believe we can advance our grid while keeping our air quality safe to breathe. The American Lung Association has given all 3 of the counties in my district a failing grade for air particle pollution, which has serious impacts on the health of my constituents. And as you know, I'm an emergency medicine physician and public health expert, and that's very important to me. That is why I am particularly passionate about supporting the EPA's congressionally granted authority to protect the public's health and the environment, including through pollution standards like the one we are discussing today. And as a physician, I have seen firsthand the connection between a person's health and the environment where they live and the very real effect of environmental injustices. Communities that face the biggest burdens are oftentimes marginalized, impoverished, communities of color, and they have 10 years less life expectancy who live in high polluted, poor air quality communities than in other places that don't have the same pollution in their air. So it has real life health impacts in the communities. Mr. Duffy, how would the EPA's proposed rule reduce pollution from power plants?
Sure. So this rule will significantly reduce pollution associated with especially the baseload plants, but will also control those that are running less often. This is part of a whole suite of power sector rules. Some are more focused on hazardous air pollutants and local criteria pollutants. This, of course, is focused on CO2. It will have co-benefits associated with that. And as you mentioned, the impacts of climate change are falling most heavily on those overburdened communities already. The other thing EPA is doing in this rulemaking is to ensure active community engagement when these state plans are written such that the concerns of local communities can be brought to bear when power plants and states are considering how to move forward.
Well, according to the American Lung Association's 2023 report card, my congressional district ranks as one of the worst for air pollution in the country. From a large volume of transportation, warehouse development, and air particulate matter from saline mineral dust in the Salton Sea region, the communities in my district suffer from a high rate of asthma and other respiratory health complications. Can you elaborate more on the engagement with local community parts?
Yep. So EPA has in its proposal, as well as a complementary rule, which is it's called implementing, how to implement these sort of 111D rulemakings, has really elevated and made it clear that shallow community engagement is no longer sufficient for meeting the meaningful engagement requirements of the Clean Air Act. And so they will need to demonstrate in their plans that they have reached out to the communities that are most impacted and that they have gotten sufficient input about concerns associated with the technologies, concerns associated with health, et cetera, such that the plans are reflective of those concerns.
One of the biggest concerns are the cumulative impact of polluting projects, industries that come in. And taking an individual and assessing the increment of pollution that they add over time, although the individual emission can meet certain criteria to allow them to pursue, over time, you're just adding to a conglomerate of dirty air. which has significant impact. So where are we with assessing the cumulative impacts?
Right. I mean, I think that is why it's so important that Administrator Regan came in and said, you know, not only for communities, but also for companies, we are going to set the rules of the road early with a lot of lead time. And we are going to, you know, make sure that our fossil fleet is operating cleanly. We're going to do that by focusing on hazardous air pollutants, on the criteria PM, ozone pollutants, and we're going to focus on climate pollution, such that these can be comprehensive solutions that communities can engage with, power companies can plan, the grids can plan, the states can plan.
As part of meaningful consultation, they bring community, and I've worked on this, especially with some of the tribes that often experience check the box. We sent out a message, and now now because they haven't responded, we've done our job, and it's a problem that we're dealing in energy in this committee with wanting to allow cable companies to do the same for tribes to enter their land, to build, on their land without their permission if they don't respond within 45 days. But part of the meaningful consultation means to have conversations about mitigation efforts in case something goes bad. Is that part of the necessity? So in case something goes bad, that those that pollute the area, the water, the air, in this case, there's some kind of accountability, some kind of recompense to the local communities?
Right. So in here, EPA has enforcement authority, obviously, if they do not meet their standards. And if a plant is committed to retirement or to doing a CCS project, there are increments of progress to make sure that they are on a path to achieving those pollution reductions.
Okay, thank you. Gentleman yields